This is my heater. I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
You want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What is going on? Welcome back, Baseball Unstitched. Enjoying the new studio that we're working with here right now, guys. Hoping to put out some even more professional looking content, and hopefully the sound quality and video quality continues to improve on episode number 14 of Baseball Unstitched. We've got something good for you guys today, talking a little spring training. We're going to dive deeper into the Baltimore Orioles rotation. This has been a large topic of debate lately, all across socials. Also, both being Maryland guys, we've got friends who have said, hey, talk a little bit about the Baltimore rotation. Tell us more. We're hearing a lot of different things, good, bad, ugly, all the above. So we're going to let Flax over here dig a little bit into that rotation, and I have some comments of my own to make. After we get through that, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about how we did on a couple offseason predictions. We're going to stick to two of them real quick at the end of this, specifically talking about when Evan Flax said Jesse Winker would be a great fit for the Philadelphia Phillies. Didn't happen, but was he wrong? I don't know that he was. And then finally, of course, the Christmas present that everybody in Boston was hoping to get actually happened in Alex Bregman. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Past that, as always, Flax, how was your weekend?
Weekend was good. It was busy. You and I got in the batting cages a little bit, hit the ball around. Always fun for us. See where the swing's at. Get ready for a little men's league.
Yeah. You guys tell us if you want a little bit more of that. I did coax Flax out of retirement. He's wearing the Denison baseball hat today, but he will be part of the Denver Jays 25A men's league this year. I played pretty well on that team last year, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but we're gonna see if Flax has still got it. So.
Our goal is over under 2 home runs this season.
Wow, so 2.5 is pretty good. I don't think I've hit one since I was 12, but I did bat flip one that hit the top of the fence last year, unfortunately for me. We're going to try to put it over this year. Either way, if you guys want to see some of that, let us know. We'd be happy to share our swings that are probably better than we think they are. I don't really know at this point.
Man,
Either way, Flax, let's rock and roll here. And we're going to start with something different, guys, because nobody is signing anybody right now. It turns out it's all minor league deals to fill out rosters, and we don't have this big list of players to let you know when somewhere. So let's do something a little bit more fun, and that's best home run of the week that we saw, what would be, the week of the 17th. So, Flax, best home run last week.
Best home run last week. Levi Clark for the Tennessee Volunteers. I'm going into college baseball. And the moment of it was what did it for me. We're in a 3-3 ball game. Tennessee, Samford. Samford's pitcher had been dealing all day. They brought a new kid in. They worked to a bases loaded situation. This kid, Levi Clark, hadn't done well the day before. Was getting the day off. He's a freshman catcher, true freshman catcher. Comes off the bench, takes a great at-bat, watches 3 pitches around the zone that were nibbling the edges near the bottom of the zone, gets to a good plus count, and then the simplest, smoothest swing you've ever seen, absolutely parked one over left field, over the levels of left field for a grand slam. If you haven't gone and watched the video, please go to Tennessee's account, go to our Twitter account. It's on both. It was phenomenal. So that's my home run of the week. What do you got?
Yeah, dude. In your words, absolute crazy town. That's what that home run was. Absolute crazy town. I've got the easiest one of the week, guys. And if you didn't see Zach Veen's bat flip this past week, you missed it. Because he bat flipped so hard, once he realized what he did, he stopped and gave the pitcher one of these. Oh, my bad, man. My bad. And then just trotted around the bases. That pimp job it was day 2 or day 3 of baseball, might be the pimp job of the year, and we're just hanging out in spring training. So was really fun. Another one to definitely go take a look at. It's on our Twitter account. It's all over.
I will say this. I saw a lot of chatter of like who needs to bat flip that hard in spring training. Listen, try telling a minor leaguer that every single spring training game is not their World Series when they're trying to make a 26-man big league roster for the first time. It's important, and they're going to play like it, and they're going to emotionally invest themselves into those at-bats as if it is the biggest at-bat they've ever taken. Stuff like that happens when you're in that state.
And I would also throw out there, for those who aren't familiar with Zach Veen, he's been a highly touted prospect for the last 2-3 years and has dealt with a lot of injuries. So getting onto the field, especially with the opportunity in spring training and connecting with a ball like that, emotions are going to come out. You're probably going to, listen, at least he bat flipped and it went over the fence. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there. I've been on the wrong side of that like 3 times. So good for Zach Veen. I loved it. That was a really entertaining video to watch, and we will definitely be using the GIF of that on a regular basis throughout the season. So if you haven't seen it, promise you will. Promise you will. Let's move into the first major topic of the day, and we already teed it up for you guys. That is going to be the discussion here on the Orioles rotation. Flax, as a longtime Orioles fan, is going to roll into this one for us. Evan, tell us a little bit more about how you see this rotation with all the chatter around the fact that, yes, the Orioles didn't necessarily add the high-end arm that a lot of people were expecting.
Yeah, let's start with how this rotation was built and what the intent was behind how they built it. Most big league teams, if you're going to get through a full season successfully, you need 9 to 12 capable starters. It is what it is. Most people are going to have a 5-man rotation. A couple teams are moving to a 6-man rotation. Sometimes teams move to that 6-man rotation in the middle of the season. But the intent here behind how the rotation was put together was a lot of guys who can get you through 5 to 6 innings of 2 to 3 run baseball. The Orioles have a prolific offense. The expectations are high on the offense. The goal is to score a lot of runs. The goal is to put yourself in positions through the first 5 or 6 innings of a game where you are in the game with an opportunity to win. And then you have a stacked bullpen with guys like Gregory Soto, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Felix Bautista, Yennier Cano, Cionel Perez, Keegan Aiken, Andrew Kittredge. All of these guys are worthwhile arms in high leverage, big game situations. So how do you do that when you have a bunch of different types of arms in your rotation? We'll start with the lead. In my mind, that's Grayson Rodriguez. Grayson Rodriguez needs to take his next step forward. The goal and the conversation around him for the last 2 years has been that he is going to be the front-end ace of the Baltimore Orioles. This is the year that is meant to happen. That's not to say that they're not going to get somebody at the deadline. That's not to say that they're not going to go buy somebody in free agency at the beginning of a really good class in next year's offseason. But for this season, the goal is to have the Grayson Rodriguez that went toe-to-toe with Garrett Cole last year at home when the Orioles won 2-1. That's who they need at the front of their rotation. And then behind him, you have guys like Zach Eflin, who throw tons of strikes. As long as he can stay healthy, can throw a lot of innings and get a lot of outs. He's been in that number 2, number 3 role his entire career and has done it pretty successfully within the division. You have a guy like a Dean Kramer who's going to throw somewhere between a 3.5 and a 4.5 ERA. It's what he does. He's an unreal competitor, wants the ball in big spots, and has no problem working into the 6th, 7th inning if he has the right pitch count to do so. And then who's your number 4? Charlie Morton. 41-year-old Charlie Morton is there to eat innings. For the last 4 straight years, he's had anywhere between 30 and 33 starts. If you know that every 5 days you can call out a name and the guy is going to be on the mound, that is the most important thing that a starting staff can have. And by the time you get to the middle of the season, it really doesn't matter who the number 1 is and who the number 5 is, as long as you're in a constant cycle of somebody showing up for you. And the hope is that you can have 2 to 3 guys that are showing up for you every 5 days. So when you look at how they have built a rotation, that's your top 4 starters, all of which are more than capable of going out every 5 days, giving you 5 to 6 innings of 2 to 3 to 4 run baseball, keeping a prolific offense in the game. I like to think you don't need 5 incredible starters to win a lot of ball games. So that's where I sit on these guys, and we can talk about some of the upside guys, and I think we'll get into that part of the conversation. But Ryan, before we get into that, I'm curious your thoughts on at least the outset of how that rotation's built and what the expectation is of that before we kind of dig into what else exists as we get into the dog days of the season.
Yeah, I just feel as if, to be completely honest, people look at the staff and they see that they don't have a name at the top that is commonly considered an ace. I struggle a little bit with that from a standpoint of G-Rod, not Gray Rod, G-Rod is still only 25 years old. He built off of his 2023 and 2024. Production-wise, was better, and was better by a good margin. But the big thing that I saw with him is progression in the right places. So, first off, he fits the new profile of pitcher. And what do I mean by that? What do you see the Tampa Bays of the world and the Clevelands of the world, who are well known for pitching factories, going after? And that's the quote-unquote extension stat. It's a new StatCast stat, or newer, I should say. And all extension is where you release the ball against the plate. Okay, so the further or the closer to the plate you release the ball, the higher you are within this overall category. Grayson Rodriguez ranks at the 96th percentile in this. So he is throwing the ball closer to the plate than around, right, 96% of pitchers in Major League Baseball. What is that doing for him? It makes his fastball and all of his pitches get on the hitter quicker from an overall standpoint, and it's going to help his entire arsenal. Hard not to love that. G-Rod also commands one of the best changeups in all of baseball. For the longest time, we have talked about how important, especially in my opinion for starters in a rotation, to be able to throw a consistently good changeup. Because the reality is, though, we are so caught up in strikeouts in this day and age of baseball, for good reason. The changeup is that much more effective now because all it's doing is consistently disrupting hitter timing at a level of which, truthfully, spin cannot do. You can see spin out of the hand way better than you can an elite changeup. It's just how it works. And now that he's also releasing this that much closer to the plate, it adds a little bit more of effect from an overall standpoint. Going into some more deeper analytics, because you know that's something that I do. Hitters last year in 2024 hit 161 off of G-Rod's changeup. Hitters slugged 125 points worse in 2024 against his fastball, which shows you he is not leaving it over the heart of the plate as much, and he commanded that pitch much better in 2024 than he did 2023. And the expectation, again, this year, as we will hammer home, is it's about taking the next step for G-Rod. Neither of us are saying that he was an ace last year. Burns was clearly the ace last year. That's not a question. Last year, he showed flashes of being an ace, and we expect him to take that next step. The final points on Grayson Rodriguez that I'll hit on is last year in 2024, he improved his whiff percentage, his walk percentage, and his K percentage by 9+ points year over year. I really do think this guy's got it. Part of the perception on him is we have been talking about him since he was 19, 20 years old. I equate this to what we're doing with Jason Dominguez right now. The joke is that he's been on every prospect list for all of eternity. And I don't think anybody's wrong about that. But no different to Dominguez, Grayson Rodriguez had his own injury troubles. We've got to be patient with these guys. He's only 25 years old, and his stuff is as good as anybody in Major League Baseball's and is elevating each year against what he's done. So, big fan of G-Rod. He's probably the main reason why I'm not upset about what the Orioles did with the rotation, but he has to take that step.
And one quick thing on him.
Yeah.
Towards the end of last season, he really didn't pitch the last 2 months because of a lat injury. And the choice to hold him back for as long as they did and not rush him back to try and get somewhere in the playoffs was partially feeling like they had between Eflin and Burns something they could push through and give themselves a chance as long as the offense got hot. But realistically, it's about the window, right? If you know that he's going to need to take the next step the next year, if you know that he's your backup plan as your ace if you can't re-sign Corbin Burns, then you need to prepare for that. You can't rush into that situation. You want to come into the next spring training with him full go right out of the gates, which is exactly what they did this year.
And I totally agree. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm happy that they didn't go get a number one. I have stated multiple times, though, on the pod that I think there's a larger crop of quote-unquote ones in the 2025 offseason there was the 2024. The Orioles historically, even though they now have new ownership that's willing to spend, are not the ones who are going to get into a bidding war for a Corbin Burnes or a Max Fried. And to be fair, they did put out a great offer for Burnes. So let's move along from that. Let me hit on Eflin real quick because I did want to touch on him right now. First off, last year I believe his average fastball was like 91.7 miles an hour, and he has a top 5 fastball in all of baseball by run value. Okay, Zach Eflin is the epitome of guys we got to see when we were growing up, or the style of pitcher that Greg Maddux would say he was at the end of his career. I'm not comparing those guys statistically. However, what makes that version or type of a pitcher is a guy who stays completely out of the middle of the plate and keeps the ball off the barrel on a regular basis. Eflin last year still struck out, I think, around 130 batters. It's not like he doesn't have good chase rates and an okay or decent overall K rate. I think it's slightly below average. But my point with him is really simple. He's a guy with a 6-pitch mix that actually gets used. He does use his changeup 6% of the time. Like, that's his least used pitch, guys. So he uses his full arsenal on a regular basis. He locates the entirety of his full arsenal. I believe he's a 95 plus percentile guy in walk rate, right? Up, as we've joked, approaching the Phil Hugheses of the world with that type of walk rate. So Eflin is like the sneakiest 2 in all of baseball right now. And he's done it so consistently as it pertains to keeping the ball off the barrel that it's hard for me to believe that he will not do it again. If Eflin comes out and throws to a 3.4, 3.5 type ERA, he's going to do everything that the Orioles ask for, and he's going to be pretty high as it pertains to the number of quality starts that he puts out for them. And I think that statement right there is the biggest statement for everything in the Orioles bullpen this year. The more quality starts they put out, which for anybody who doesn't know, a quality start is 6 innings, 3 earned runs or less given up. The more quality starts they put out, the more ball games they will win. They don't need anything more than the quality start. And you could argue that they only want 5 innings of 3-run baseball because of what their bullpen is. So I'm not upset about it. The only other thing I want to touch on real quick, because you mentioned it, is the Orioles did have 4 different guys with over a 1 OAA who all play positions outside of first base. They're a good defensive team too. They're young and athletic. Ball in play is not a big deal for them. We're not stressing out about what happens when the ball gets into the field of play with the Baltimore Orioles. So, needless to say, Flax.
I think one of the other things to talk about when it comes to the Orioles and their rotation and the expectations going forward is, I said it before, you need 9 to 12 guys. So you look at it right now, you have 5 that we talked about, or we talked about 4, but you have 5 with the signing of Tomoyuki Sagano from the MPB. Again, he's a little older, but he throws an insane amount of strikes. You want to talk about how good Eflin is at throwing strikes? Sagano's on another level. Last year, in 156 innings pitched, he only walked 16 guys. 0.9 walks per 9 innings in 2024. So as he's gotten older, he's definitely thrown less every single year as far as innings go. But if he's a number 5 and their goal is for him to be a guy that throws strikes and puts the team in a position, like you said, to win, he includes quality starts in what he's trying to accomplish every day, every 5th day when he takes the ball, I think it leads them to be in a potential position to win a lot of the games that he throws. He's forcing hitters to beat him. He's not giving them the opportunity to win ball games themselves with no effort. And then the next 2 guys I would talk about in that, Albert Suarez, Cade Povich. Cade Povich made 16 starts last year at the big league level. There was a progression in what he did, going from throwing strike or not throwing strikes and walking a lot of guys to finding the zone and being really dominant within it. He profiles very similar to a guy like Max Fried, not just in look and size, but in arsenal, the way he uses it, the actual life on his fastball, being able to use a sneaky slow fastball, 92, 93 at the top of the zone, which he does very well when he's doing it well. And what he got last year when he was in the big leagues, a really low hard hit rate and a really low average exit velocity. 36.6% hard hit rate and only an 88.4% average exit velocity. Last year, Corbin Burnes had, I believe, an 87 average exit velocity from a guy who was one of the best pitchers in baseball. Found a lot of success. So if he can start to find his arsenal, we expect to see him make probably 15 to 20 starts when it's all said and done. And then over time, the hope is that you get guys like Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells back post All-Star break, mid-season, coming off Tommy John. They have more question marks, obviously coming off of an injury, but the likelihood that they will give you an opportunity to win a ball game, they will be in the strike zone and they will make hitters beat them, is really high. And that's all this Orioles staff is out there to do. They're not out there to be a staff of aces. There are teams that have that. There are teams like the Mariners who are going to go out and have 4 to 5 guys who are going to be on the mound and dominate hitters. That's what they do. That's how they build themselves. They also don't have a prolific power offense that they're expecting to put up 6 to 7 runs a game. It's just two different styles of baseball. And the Orioles obviously know what theirs is and are making an effort to build around that. This is not that far off from what they did in 2023 when they won 101 games. Kyle Gibson led that staff. He's not a superstar, but you know what Kyle Gibson did? He had a 3.5 ERA. He kept the offense in the game. They had a prolific back-end bullpen that closed out all of his starts, and he won 10 to 15 games that year. So that's the direction I see the Orioles starting staff, the direction of what they're trying to accomplish, and I think they're going to be very successful with it this year, and that's not a biased opinion because I truly sat down and looked at everybody who can be a part of this staff going forward. There are guys I didn't even mention that threw last year, will throw this year, but for everyone that exists within the top 5 to 7 organizationally within this starting staff, there's a lot of upside that I think they're going to find because their intention is not for these guys to dominate. Their intention is for these guys to keep the offense in the game and let them play baseball and let the back end of the bullpen close out games when they have opportunities to win, which they will do a good job of.
Yeah, and I listened to part of it, and nobody has wanted to hear it, but we've said it multiple different times, and I'm happy to say it again, is this. As long as the Orioles are in it closer to the deadline, they can make the move to go get the number one if they want. Everybody does have to remember that minor league system is still extremely deep from an overall standpoint. The Orioles have pieces of which they could part with in order to go get a number one as needed at the deadline or whatever that situation may look like. So, at the end of the day, I do tend to agree with you. I think the 5-man rotation that they currently have is more than adequate enough at the current moment to put them in a spot to be a playoff contender and potentially a World Series contender. I hesitate on the back half because I would still like them to have that power right-handed arm. However, at the end of the day, one power right-handed arm does not change the destiny of a team necessarily. It's another thing for us to remember, guys, is this 26-man roster is what's going to dictate it. It won't be just because they added one more arm. And then if G-Rod goes out and looks like Flax and I believe he will look like, they already have that right-handed power arm who sits at the top of their rotation. So it's going to be interesting. I want to end it on this. Flax, Fangraphs has the rotation for the Baltimore Orioles dropping to Zach Eflin as the number 1, Grayson Rodriguez, Charlie Morton, Dean Kramer, Tomoyuki Sagano as the number 5. How do you break down this rotation if you have the keys to the car?
I'm not that far off from what Fangraphs is looking. The only thing I see is I think they want Grayson to be the opening day starter. I think as long as he stays on track with health, I think he will be the opening day starter. And I think that Zach Eflin will back him up. And then my curiosity is whether or not Sugano ends up being the 4 or the 5 and flip-flops with Dean Kramer. But my guess is that you try and get a little bit of electricity out of Grayson opening day. You follow him up with what I think are pretty sure quality starts with Eflin and Morton, and that's your first series of the year.
Yeah, I like that.
And then I think things follow.
I like that. I think the high upside guy this year is probably Povich for you guys, which I think is absolutely great. However, at the end of the day, I do not expect Povich to make a full slate of starts this year. I agree that he's next man up and potentially even makes the team as the swing man. We'll see what they want to do with that. I think there's a high likelihood with some of the age on this staff that the Orioles purposely position themselves to have a swing man ready to go, even if it's an every other week swing man type role as a spot starter. So it'll be really interesting to see what they do moving into the season. All right. For those of you who wanted the Baltimore Orioles rotation discussion, you now have it. Take it for what it is, but we both do here believe on Baseball Unstitched that the rotation is going to be better than anybody's currently giving it credit for. But moving right along, as my father would say, we made some predictions this offseason. Some of them were awesome, like when we said Carson Kelly was going to be a Cub, and 72 hours later, Carson Kelly was a Cub. That was dope. However, not everything went that way. But we did want to highlight 2, go back and talk about these because we thought they'd be entertaining for you guys. And the first one's going to be when Flax said that Jesse Winker would be a great fit for the Philadelphia Phillies. Go ahead and listen in to what he said on what I believe was episode 1 of Baseball Unstitched.
Jesse Winker, 31 years old, absolutely a good fit for a lot of teams that are going to try and push for the playoffs, that are in a good spot for it. I mean, we saw it last year, right? With them
do we need to talk about stats
going and grabbing it.
Have you seen the flow and do you know the vibes? I don't even know if I want to talk stats. I think we've said enough. Just his name was good.
Who wouldn't want him, right?
Just
I
saying.
mean, he's been doing it forever, and there was a little bit of a lull in his career, and maybe it was water finding its level. But
you go to Seattle and Milwaukee.
Example.
Those are tough places to hit.
Right, absolutely. So a place that I think he'd benefit from hitting in. It's a team that I think is making some moves that would open some room for him. Philadelphia Phillies. They're going to be a playoff contender because they are the Philadelphia
Phillies. Send him to an NL East team? Come on, man.
They are. I know you don't want it, but I mean, you gave him to an NL East team in the playoffs. I'm just following the trend at this point. They're shopping Marsh. They could be shopping Castellanos. They're shifting around their outfield. I think even if he's a platoon bat against right-handed hitters, there is massive upside for him. He's a good defensive outfielder, and I think that's a place where he could thrive being in a lineup behind some really, really good hitters, right? I mean, but behind guys like Harper, Schwarber, Turner, there are so many opportunities for him there to be a really good piece and be a good clubhouse presence, a guy that's been in the playoffs and not going to be uncomfortable when that team gets there.
That's what Flax said. Flax, what happened? How'd that go? Did we get it right? Did we get it wrong? Well, he's not a Philly, so we didn't get it totally right. That's for sure.
I was not wrong about what the Phillies needed, and I was not wrong about their intent to go get a left-handed hitting outfielder. I was wrong about who I thought they were going to go after, but only because I didn't really consider Max Kepler an option. Considering his injury history, I think he's great upside. I felt Jesse Winker was probably going to be more in the financial wheelhouse, to be quite honest, but they weren't that far off from one another. They ended up going with Max Kepler, and now I think I look at it as one of the steals of the offseason. If Max Kepler can stay healthy, it's going to be unfair.
I totally agree. And one of the reasons, guys, we wanted to bring this up is it was less about tooting our own horns in this scenario and bringing up the fact that the Philadelphia Phillies got a extremely high upside player in Max Kepler on a 1-year, $10 million deal. So everybody's aware, if you do not remember, Jesse Winker ended up signing a 1-year deal with the New York Mets at $7.5 million. Kepler's a little bit younger, and the upside for Kepler is out of this world. He's hit 20 home runs 2 different times. He also had a, I believe, 36 home run season in 2019. Kepler's big thing is super, super simple. Hasn't been able to stay healthy. That's the big thing with Max Kepler. When he is on the field, he is an upper echelon player in baseball that has played in Minnesota, so absolutely none of you probably even remember that he's played baseball since 2015. Throwing it out there. It's not a bad thing. It's just the truth because he has not been on the field, which is kind of a thing for the Twins, but we're going to leave that alone. The other piece that people forget about Max Kepler is the fact that not only does he have offensive upside, he's got extremely solid defensive upside. Kepler has been a consistent high-level OAA guy. He could play center field extremely well. Again, the question becomes, can you keep him healthy? Because that's a left-handed power bat that the Phillies didn't even need to add that they did. Flax, any other thoughts on Kepler from an overall standpoint and what you think he can do for this lineup?
I don't. There's nothing major for me. It's just nice that they have a little bit more depth. They have an old lineup, and I don't mean that like. Listen, old is a relative term,
Sure.
and you have young guys within that. And Harper's still gonna be great, but he's not young anymore. Schwarber's not that young anymore. Castellanos not that young anymore. Like they're not the youngest lineup in baseball. Real Muto, as far as catchers go, not that young anymore, right? Like, so they're, and again, Kepler's not super young, but as long as you're continuing to add depth to lineups like that, it's going to help you get through a full season. It's going to put you in a position where you feel as fresh as you can after 162 and you start to get into the even the dog days of summer, but into playoff baseball. So I like the move as a whole.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think I want to add to Kepler's situation is there's a high likelihood that Kepler hits like 7th in this lineup, guys. You're talking about a guy who was consistently hitting between 3 and 4 slot 3, 4, and 5 slot when he was healthy for the Minnesota Twins. We talk a lot about roster configuration and what you're going to do with a guy like this. You put Kepler in the 7 hole. Yes, I get it. Major League pitching is not just going to give people fastballs. I understand that. But I can guarantee you that people would rather force a guy like Kepler in the bottom of that lineup and Bryson Stott and somehow JT Realmuto. You would rather force that group of guys to beat you than lose to the top of your order, which consists of a Trey Turner, a Bryce Harper, and a Kyle Schwarber. You're going to get beat by the other guys before you get beat by them. So Kepler, if he is healthy, this could be a career year for him in a great situation.
They are in the bottom half of baseball by age.
I like it. Only other thing I'm going to add, I just wanted to drop back to that OAA stat on Kepler. Kepler last year at 31 years old did not at all by any means play a full season. He still had a 4 OOA in the outfield, or OAA in the outfield. Dude can still play.
Sheesh.
Great defender. So
Yeah, wow.
yeah, think the Phillies did a good job there. We also want to throw out that within like a week of us saying Winker should be a Philly because he fit what the need was and he has the type of grit that they have in Philadelphia, he like outwardly came out and was like, dude, I want to be a Met.
Yeah.
And we knew it was out the window.
Yeah, it was tough. And literally Max Kepler got signed by the Phillies, I think another day later. Like, it all just happened within a week of us putting out our first episode. So,
I love it. That was a fun time. So let's move to the next prediction. And let me tell you, Flax hit this one on the head, guys. He was giving out Christmas gifts. He was giving out Hanukkah gifts. And you know what? The Red Sox got exactly what he said they would get. Take a listen real quick here. It's episode 5 and a small clip from episode 6 of Flax calling Bregman to the Red Sox.
Similar for the Red Sox. And Alex Bregman signing in the next couple of days would be everything you'd want your Christmas to be if you were a Red Sox fan. Where do we see Bregman ending up?
Yep.
I personally, of the teams that I think are linked to him, I like the Red Sox for him a lot. Career 45% fly ball and pull rate hitter. Yeah, I think it's a ballpark that's going to suit him well. I think that
besides the offensive side, the defensive side's really important. You just signed a left-handed starter who gets a ton of ground balls, Garrett Crochet pitches to a 43% ground ball rate. Shoring up that left side of the infield is going to be really important for Boston. And then on top of that, you've got a third baseman over there who's been one of the worst defenders in baseball at third base since 2019 in Rafael Devers. Either put him at the DH spot or put him at first base. Like right now, he is absolutely hurting you on that side of the infield, whether you like it or not. I think Bregman comes in, shores up that side of the defense while also bringing a pretty good right-handed bat into the lineup. So I've got Boston.
There you go. We're not always right, but dear Lord, was Flax right? Flax, tell us more about why he fit in Boston, because I said he was going to be a New York Yankee, and that fell pretty flat on his face.
Damn, that feels good. No, I mean, listen, we all know why he fits there. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like he's going to get to do the thing that they intended to get him for, which is play third base and be a really dangerous third baseman. I don't know that listen, let's check back in May and see what that defensive alignment looks like. There's a very real possibility that Devers is DHing at that point. That aside, I felt like his bat fit really well in Boston. And we saw it game 1 of spring training when he parked a ball over the faux green monster at JetBlue Park. Like, no problem. Wrapped around a fastball, put it in the air to left field, and it cleared that green monster.
Did you also take a home run trot when he did that? Did you also take
I thought about it, and then I was like, I'm going to let him have this one. Because I knew I was going to take my victory lap today on the pod.
All right.
Yeah, I thought it through.
I like that. Look, guys, we've talked about the stats behind this, and the reality of the situation is I'll be the first one to say it. I expect Bregman by about the second month of the baseball season to be playing third for the Boston Red Sox. Again, maybe I'll be incorrect. This is nothing against Rafael Devers, but I love Devers for his bat. I don't love Devers for playing third base. It's just what it is. He could probably be a very adequate first baseman to his own credit. However, -5 run fielding value last year from Rafael Devers. And their new ace, by the way, Garrett Crochet, not sure if you guys know who he is, 43% ground ball rate. And he's left-handed, and he throws a hard slider. That means ground balls to the left side of the infield on a regular basis. They will want and need Bregman there relatively quickly, in my personal opinion. We've talked about Bregman's offensive stats. We use the word for the phrase for 3 straight weeks, Crawford box merchant, like it was going out of friggin' business, going out of style, whatever you want to call it. But the truth of the matter is he's got a 45% pull rate. Listen, Bregman fits Boston too well. And if you don't think he's going to wear out the monster, haven't been watching. So really loved the fit. I really thought New York was going to go spend the money on him, especially after spending the money on Fried. The irony is my thought process for why New York needed him was very similar to what Flax's was at the time, which is you bring in and have a rotation that is going to ground the ball to the left side of the infield on a regular basis. You're probably going to want the best possible option you can have at a hole at third base. So,
they might have more of those than the Red Sox do. Between Rodon and Fried. And considering their whole bullpen throws changeups. But, who are 100%. We?
Listen, then there's another piece to this too. And that is Christian Campbell, in my opinion. You've got a guy who has not played Major League Baseball, who Fangraphs over 252 plate appearances expects to have a 339 WOBA. For anybody who is not as familiar with WOBA, the league average WOBA last year for a league average hitter was 310. So they're expecting a rookie to be 29 points better than league average, who has never played a real-life Major League Baseball game yet. No discredit to him because he was excellent in AAA. But he's also a high-leverage defender who can play up the middle of the field. Play all 3 outfield spots. He could play and has at some point in time every infield spot at the minor league level, and he's done it at a high level. When your infield could possibly consist of Bregman at third, Story at short, and Campbell at second, who are all high-end defenders from an overall standpoint, hard to pass up on that, in my opinion, for the Red Sox sooner than later.
So let's talk about this contract, though, because Bregman does have an opt-out after the first year and after the second year. So all reasonable thought processes point to, if he goes and shows out this year, even though his current contract is very, very high value, pays him for a very long time, he very easily could opt out if he has inklings that he could go get a much bigger contract somewhere else. In which case, you're still very much within the realm of timeline in which a Christian Campbell fits back into the Red Sox infield. Right?
Yeah.
Like, realistically.
I think they're more likely to move Casas than they are anybody. I truly think that you have such a large contract on Devers. Not that people wouldn't take it, because when you do truly look at the Devers contract and what people are paying, and I'm going to say it this way, what people are paying cornerstone bats, Devers' contract is not horrible. No. However, I don't know that anybody wants to take something like that. Casas, one of the best personalities in baseball, we all love him to death, has shown flashes of being an elite potential hitter, also has been hurt a little bit. And there's a lot of different teams who would look for a corner infield bat to plug in the middle of their lineup that's on a minor league minimum contract. Casas has less than 2 years of service time. So he has this year and next year still on major league minimums. If you were to move him next year with 1 year left on a major league minimum to make room or make the situation better, I believe that probably nets you a little bit more than what you might get trying to move a massive contract. Also, for a fan favorite guy, I don't think anybody in Boston wants to see Rafi Big Scoops gone, and I don't think that's going to happen.
No. I think they don't want to give up the bat. I think a lot of people believe he should be playing first base or DHing. I think people would get rid of Casas to have Devers at first base. But again, we've talked about this. Is first base an easy position? No. Is it a position where you need to be an elite defender? Also no. But is it easy to play league average? Not as easy as people think.
That also might be statistics problem, but we've had that discussion already on the pod as well.
Well,
what league average looks like from a defensive standpoint. Shout out Pete Alonso.
You know what they say? First base is easy, right? Tell him, Wash.
Here we are. Final note on Bregman.
For those of you that got that, thank you.
Final note on Bregman here, guys. One thing for us to remember. There was a lot of chatter not even 72 hours after he signed about what was going on. Devers wasn't happy about the situation. My big gripe of the whole thing was a not even 2 years of service time Tristan Casas tuning in on the whole situation. And again, I love Casas. I think he is one of the premier personalities in all of baseball. I also believe that there's things players should probably stay out of. Talking about whether or not a rookie should or should not make a clubhouse is probably not his space. However, put a mic in front of Casas and you're going to have some fun, so I can't fight that too much. But the big thing here is go watch the interview of how Bregman reacted to the whole situation. Bregman is an upstanding clubhouse guy and teammate, and there's a reason why Houston players were so upset to lose him. Yeah, he's a great ball player on the field. But the way Altuve and other guys talked about him as a teammate, the fact that future Hall of Famer Jose Altuve was willing to just leave second base to bring Bregman back onto the roster should tell you everything you need to know about what he does for a team in a clubhouse. And he's been there quite a few times.
And who he learned how to be that way from. Not that he wasn't that way when he was at LSU or that he wasn't that way coming up, but to learn from a guy like Jose Altuve how to be a big league teammate, how to be a big leaguer start to finish, you know that he's going to any ball club making them better just by now being that same version wherever he goes. Because that's what he's going to be. So,
totally agree. So we had a lot of fun. Thought we'd bring up some of the things we got right, some of the things that we got wrong. Nothing too crazy here this week. Flax. I know you got something for final thoughts. You were telling me all about the final thoughts. I want to know more because you didn't actually tell me. You were just like, bro, I got final thoughts. So.
I feel bad that I'm not like I don't have the name of the person's account in front of me, but I saw one of the greatest edits for Carlos Zambrano. And for you younger viewers and listeners who do not know who Carlos Zambrano is, please go look up videos of him because not only could this man throw the ball because he was an incredible pitcher. He could hit the shit out of the ball. He actually had a couple tanks as a pitcher in a Cubs uniform. He also could throw a Gatorade cooler better than anybody else in baseball. Now, Carlos Gomez had him beat on hitting said Gatorade cooler, but the throwing of Gatorade coolers from Carlos Zambrano and the electricity that he brought, second to none. So everybody go look up Carlos Zambrano as much as you can. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you enjoy baseball. And it'll make you wish that we had more guys like that within the game right now.
So it turns out our final thoughts this week are for the Gen Zers. We didn't realize they were, but Carlos Zambrano, like, come on. We grew up watching this guy on the Cubs, and he's right. Guys, not only could he throw a Gatorade cooler, you should see him take a bat to a Gatorade machine. That dude does that. Like, this guy...
I forgot they used to have those things in the dugout.
He threw an umpire... tossed him from the game, and Zambrano turns around and tosses the umpire from the game. So, again, I'm making the joke because my little sister is Gen Z and 11 years younger than me. For all you Gen Zers, go look him up. And then there's another name you're going to go look up because my final thoughts are the one and only, one of the early guys I remember throwing triple digits on a regular basis in Joel Zumaya. Why am I bringing up Joel Zumaya today? Because, ladies and gentlemen, Joel Zumaya is the only person I have ever seen get hurt playing Guitar Hero on PlayStation 2. Joel Zumaya was out for 2 games due to an injury caused from him strumming the guitar while playing Guitar Hero on PlayStation 2 during the 2012 season. He also threw 102.
That may take top spot. That may take top spot above Trevor Bauer's drone incident during the playoffs. And now newly added to the list, welcome back this season, Dustin May, cutting your esophagus on a piece of lettuce.
That's still hard to believe, man. That's wild.
I told you yesterday, you dumped what you had heard out of my mouth out of your brain immediately because it sounded so ridiculous. So those are our final thoughts. Glad you stuck around.
Maybe we'll have an end of a podcast one day about the most wild injuries you guys have ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
We just gave out 3 that were pretty good for people who didn't realize in the playoffs Bauer was like, this drone would be sick, and then cut his hand. And then either way. There you go, guys. That's what we got for you this week. We hope you enjoyed some of the fun. We made sure to keep the end here light for you, talking about Guitar Hero and Carlos Zambrano's wonderful, wonderful temper that we got to see growing up. But past that, we're out here. We're watching baseball. Everything is rolling. We're back. Toglia is hitting nukes left and right. Zach Veen is bat flipping on everybody's favorite person. Yeah, that's right. I just talked about 2 Colorado Rockies in one sentence on Baseball Unstitched. So, guys, happy 2025 baseball season because we're here. Flax and I are having fun. We're hoping you're having fun. Past that, have a good week.
Comment, like, subscribe.
All the above.